Hi, my name is Jerry Rosenthal, and it is an honor and a privilege to be here today to share some great information with you on how to overcome the objections and concerns that people have in your business. I've been in the industry for over 18 years, and there probably isn't very many objections that I have not heard. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to take 3 or 4 of the top objections or concerns that you might hear from people when you're out there prospecting or doing business. And I'm just going to share with you some ideas of the ways that I used to overcome these objections that were very successful to me. So the first one I want to go over, I'm sure you guys get a lot of, and that is, I really don't have the time right now. People will always tell you, I don't have the time to get started, I don't have the time to do this. And one of the things I always try and do, no matter what the concern is that somebody gives me, is I always try to just agree with them and align with them. So when someone says to you, I don't have the time, let's say we're just talking to me and you say, Jerry, I totally understand that. I know exactly how you feel. I've been in the same boat. But do you mind if I share something with you that someone showed me in the business when I had the same concern that really shifted my thought process? And if they say yes, basically what I used to do is I used to take out a little 3x5 card or a sheet of paper, and I used to write 168 hours on the top, because that's how many hours all of us have in a given week. Then what I would do is I would take work, how many hours a week they work, how many hours a week they actually sleep, how many hours a week they actually spend eating, 3 meals a day, and how many hours a week they do recreational stuff, their kids' games, family time, church. And I'd add that all up and I'd subtract it from 168 hours. And every single time, every single person I did that with always had another 15 to 25 hours that were unaccounted for. And so what I would tell them is I would say, you see, it's not that you don't have the time to get involved and do the business. The question is, are you willing to invest 5 to 10 hours of the time you have left to change your family's life? And that is a great way to overcome the objection of, I don't have the time. The second one that I want to go over, which is one of my favorites, is I don't have the money. I don't have the money to get started. And this is one that I've used in success a lot, but you have to be careful how you word this. So when someone says, I don't have the money, you say, I totally understand how you feel, Jerry. I've been in the same position that you're in. But would you mind if I shared with you what someone shared with me when I got started that kind of shifted my thought process? And it's very important that you frame it that way, because otherwise you might get the person offended if you don't say it like that. So when they say, sure, share with me what somebody said. And I said, well, when I got involved, the person who got me started asked me a very simple question. They said, how many years have you been in the workforce working? Well, I'm 43 right now. I started working when I was 16, so that's a very long period of time. So you're talking 27 years. And he said to me, well, how much do you think you've averaged over that 27-year period of time yearly? What would your average be? And I thought, well, maybe $30,000 a year, just to throw out a number. So he said, so 27 years, $30,000 a year means that you probably made well over $750,000 in that time. Is that true? And I would say, yes. And he said, so here's my question. If you've made over $750,000 in the last 27 years of working, and you don't have X amount of dollars to get started in a business today, doesn't that kind of show you that the plan you're on isn't working really well? And you got to be quiet after that and let it sink in. And that's why it's so important that at the beginning, you have to say, do you mind if I share with you what somebody shared with me when I had that concern, so it takes the pressure off. And people will begin to understand exactly what you're talking about. And then you would just basically say to them at that stage of the game, so I'm sure you understand the point I'm trying to make here, is that, if we're doing all this work and we don't have enough money to invest in our own future, we've got to change something. Why don't you let me show you how we can start changing your financial future today? And by that time, a lot of people will actually come up with the money, they'll find it. I did when I started my business, because I realized I couldn't afford not to do it. So that is a great way to overcome the objection of I don't have the money. Another objection that you get is the pyramid scheme. Is this one of those pyramid things? Always say, what is your definition of a pyramid? Don't ever answer the question, and try not to get defensive and offended when people ask that question. When they say, is this a pyramid? Just say, well, what is your definition of a pyramid? And they're going to say things like, well, that's when you make money off of all sorts of people. And I say, so basically it's just like your job. And then they'll get very quiet. And then I just basically explain how their job has different levels of management, and that every level above them, that person gets paid more than the person below them. So every job is a pyramid. So all I basically say to them is, here's what you really have to decide. Do you want to own your pyramid, or do you want to be owned by the pyramid that you work for? It's the only decision you have to make today. And usually that will take away the objection of, is this a pyramid scheme? The last one I want to just mention to you real briefly is when people say, I need to talk to my spouse. And here's one thing that I've learned. If you allow someone to talk to their spouse and you don't go along on the appointment, that spouse is going to get shot down most of the time. So one of the things I say is, if somebody says to me, let's just say that it's Betty, and Betty says, I have to talk to my husband. I would say, I totally understand that, Betty. I'm like you. I don't make decisions unless I speak to my spouse. But let me ask you a question. Have you ever went to a movie with your girlfriends and you come home and you're all fired up and you try to explain the movie to your husband? And usually they'll laugh and she'll say, yeah. And I'll say, well, how exactly did that go? She says, well, he didn't quite get it. And I says, right, because he wasn't there to experience it with you. I said, well, it's the same thing with this business. If you go to try and explain this to your husband by yourself without really understanding all the information and how to answer his questions, chances are he's not going to have the same experience. So why don't we do this? Why don't we set up a time and let's go meet him together? That way I can be there, answer any questions that he has, make sure he gets the right information up front, and give you the best chance of him supporting you so you can get started in the business. Now, a lot of times you may have some people that will just absolutely refuse to let you come over. No, my spouse isn't like that. I need to talk to them first. There's nothing you can do when that happens. What I would suggest you do if that does happen and they won't let you go back with them, is I would just suggest to you that you equip that person. Give them some information. Train them like if you were training a new consultant. Teach them what to tell their spouse, what to show them, so that they can go and do a decent job and hopefully have a chance to be able to get into the business. So that is 4 of the top objections that we get in our industry. I hope that that helps you build your business, get more people involved, and reach the financial dreams you have for your family. Thank you for listening.